where y'all at with Acunda and CP?
Yeah, they'll be out there at practice. Yeah, they'll be out there at practice. One thing, I'll go ahead and give it to you because it's going to be on the injury report. But Troy Anderson, he came in yesterday, didn't feel right, and so, we put him in the protocol. We'll see how that goes all week. But anytime somebody comes in day after, 2 days after, or any time, we take that too serious, and so, that'll be evaluated in a week. That'll be on the injury report. The only thing I say that because Monday morning, the information I had, we were good to go.
And so the backup there is Tay Davis, or how?
Yeah, we'll just see how the game plan is, and we got a lot of, Tay, Landman, see how it goes. Obviously, who we need as well depth-wise for special teams. So that's what it is. I mean, just like last week, that's why I continually talk about depth during the season and why it's so important to build depth and to have a flexible roster and a lot of guys you trust. So every week there's going to be something, and we mean that about developing players and working depth.
So Acunda's back. Acuna is back. I guess health is fine, but then you got the hurdle of getting back in the football shape.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it around the league. It's hard to get to. When there's nothing that can simulate playing 60-plus snaps at that kind of energy level or mental focus, and that's always a challenge, especially early in the year. And there's a million different philosophies on preseason. I don't know if anybody's quite perfected it. You got to kind of adapt what you think is best for you. But yeah, we will be smart. Jeff's in a good spot, and we'll see how this week goes. But it is hard to go from 0 to 100.
Some of the stuff that he had been doing prior to this, I mean, how much of that was trying to ramp him to this point versus just kind of a pure rehab situation?
You talking about like the last couple of weeks? Or,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the timeline. I mean, you have timelines that the medical expert gives you, but as you guys know, everybody's body's different. So as you get closer to return to play, I mean, we have different things we try to push guys with just to see where they're at, and we'll be very smart with that. But it's an encouraging sign that he's going to be out there, practicing.
You had talked on Monday a little bit about Matt, about Thor, and a little bit of offensive stuff, but the fact that the two of you know each other so well, does that, I'm trying to think of it, does this change some of your approach this week, or?
I mean, I got a ton of respect for Matt. Matt's one of the, good guys in his profession. We worked together for 1 year. He was in Atlanta for a couple of years, 15 and 16, and then he went out to L.A., and I spent 1 year with him. Knew a lot of the same people, but, worked closely with him at 18. Philosophically, I think, like every year in the NFL is almost like 2 years. It really is. Like, it feels like that sometimes. So 2018 may not seem that long ago, but it feels like a long time. And then when people go places, there's certain things I see personality. I'm sure he sees if he's watching our tape, but you just evolve, and we've evolved, and they've done a good job. And that's why I always laugh. And, when this people get these labels and it just gets spit out over and over and over again. It's not true. It's like, hey, Matt LaFleur's learning the old Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan, Alex Gibbs system. It's like, watch the tape, and then there are a lot of smart guys on your staff, and you adapt and year after year. And so you walk in that meeting room, or he walks in our meeting room, like our languages aren't the same. Philosophically, you're not the same, but there's a lot of good ideas that we shared and talked over the years, but nothing that would affect this game. Or it's just so far removed, I guess, the best way to put it. And then, again, they're so different what they're doing compared to what they did with Aaron Rodgers too.
How long do you think it takes for guys right now to get adjusted back into game's shape? I mean, I was listening to someone say like the first 4 games are the hardest and almost most dangerous when it comes to injuries.
Again, there's a lot of theories. There's a lot of data. Depending on what somebody's incentive or what's true and what's not. And you see the crowd that says, hey, look, the 2 weeks leading up, rise in it. Well, you could make a subjective argument. Maybe that's because of what happened the first 4 weeks. If you haven't taken enough reps, and all of a sudden, you ramp it up, and you're getting ready to play. And then there's, obviously that ramp up early in camp. I think, if you follow it right, and depending on what you want to push, and I think that's been pretty good. But again, you can control in those hours how many reps you want to take day after day. And as you're looking at the numbers, and again, you take everything with a grain of salt. Like there's a lot of good information, and then it's how you apply it. Because you still can't go back, and I say this all the time, like there's no historical data on some of these guys that played 19 years that practiced a lot more. I mean, those Friday practices, I mean, you go back to, I've worked with a lot of these guys that played during those eras, and they're not just telling you the tall tales that every generation ahead of you is like, hey, we used to walk uphill 3 miles to school. That's not what this is. I'm being serious, it's true, everybody gets that, but, you don't know how people push themselves, but you do. You go back to watch Jerry Rice. I talked to, Mike Malarkey, and he was a tight end for Chuck Noll, and they'd go scrimmage goal line plays on Fridays, and those guys played week after week. Which way is better or not? Again, those are, as we're all trying to figure it out. But there's been people who have pushed themselves and played a long time and never got out of shape, and there's some things that are probably a lot safer for the game, clearly, that may have been a little too old school, but trying to find that fine line. So again, you're going to get a lot of different theories. You're trying to monitor it, but I know this: if you push yourself and get in great shape, you got a chance to play at a higher level earlier.
And just from like a human being standpoint, and even just a coach, what was your reaction when you saw Rodgers go down? I mean, there was just so much hype.
It's again, I'm concerned with us in Atlanta. You pay attention to clearly what's going on around the league, but I don't have some hot take. I think Aaron's been a great player. I'm certainly being Canton. I don't know him personally. He's been a great player in this league. You don't like to see players get injured.
Is there something to the grass turf conversation?
Again, that's something it's great debate. You've seen both sides of it, right? You've seen people complain about the grass surfaces, and we've seen that before. In other places that have changed the turf, and you see the subjective side. You've also seen guys play a long time on the old concrete astroturf that clearly probably wasn't great. I think getting that debate, that's outside my expertise. I've seen the numbers. I got my personal opinions, but I'll keep them personal.
How are you guys preparing for Jordan Love? I mean, he had a great first week.
Yeah, you're looking at what's again, everything is about context. What they're going to try to do, what they're going to try to attack. If you're, some of it's scheme, some of it's, who's making, the plays. I mean, at the end of this, Aaron Jones is a hell of a football player. Guy took a screen, explosive, took a choice route, or whatever they're calling it, out of the backfield to the house. Those are, when you got explosive players, those are things that you concern you. I think Jordan did a great job. I think he's a smart player. I think he's been in that system. I think Matt and him clearly have a feel for each other. And like I said, it's a stable organization. They've got their way of doing things that it probably hasn't changed since D-Lev was back there smoking cigs in the training room with the guys back in the day. So, and it's worked. I mean, they've got if you go and look at it. And so I think it's a great challenge for us. We got a lot of respect for them.
With the way that y'all are kind of rotating your defensive front, in conversations that you've had with someone like Grady Jarrett over the course of in game and then into this week, how much is he kind of expressing to you maybe even feels fresher to a certain extent because of the rotation that y'all have going on?
We monitor that, daily with different guys. It's not just Grady. It's every player on this team. Guys that take a lot of reps for us. There's different philosophies, different game plans going to call for different things as well. And kind of how the game goes too, Guys seem to get a little fresher when they have some known passing opportunities. They're all lining up to go back out there, trying to get a hit on the quarterback. That's what you want, because too many times if you're in really close games and there's a lot of 3rd and 2 non-obvious pass situations, there's going to be fewer times to go get the quarterback. So when you're up by 14 and you're able to get in that and they got to play a 2-minute offense, guys seemed a little fresher, got a little extra jolt. So that certainly helps. But every week's going to be a different challenge. We have our philosophy, and we understand, you evaluate daily what the game plan is weekly, and then certain decisions you got to make for the long haul of the whole season.
It's only been 5 games for him through his career at this point, but what does it say about Desmond Ridder that he hasn't thrown an interception?
Don't jinx him. Give the opportunity and how you adapt to the game, If the thing is, we got a lot of confidence every week, whether you win or lose, and that's the hardest thing, is to maintain that perspective. We have to improve. I don't care if we go out and and everything falls your way. And if you think you got all the answers, you're going to get humbled so fast in this league. And it's about daily improvement and weekly. And every game is its own, been fortunate to be in a lot of games, and they're all different. And, we were able in that game, the way it went, we made some explosive plays in the run game. We picked up late when we needed to, but that's not going to be the case every week. And we got a lot of confidence in, but we know there's a lot of things we have to fix. There's things we have to fix all over the field, whether it's in special teams, defensively, run fits, protection, whatever it is. If you don't have that objective mindset, you'll get smoked in this league, and you'll get humbled fast.
Offensively, how do you get Drake London involved more?
Again, it's supposed by the game plan. It's not. Again, there's a lot of mythology in offensive football. You can force a little junk screen in somebody that's going to be a low percentage. If it's not the right look to get them a touch. Again, when you call plays, sometimes they have a say. So if they're rolling to them or whatever, or again, a lot of it comes with a game plan opportunity. When you're up and you feel control of the game, maybe you don't want to give them a chance for hold the ball on a 7-7 for a sack fumble to lose the game. That's not going to be the case every week. Here's what gives you a lot of confidence with Drake, Kyle, Jonnu, Dez, is there's evidence in real games. One thing they've been blowing smoke saying, hey, you got confidence, you got belief, but when you actually have evidence, it certainly helps.
Yeah, Coach, some of the matchups on all different levels of defense look pretty good. Kenny Clark's up front.
Yeah, been a good player for them. Yeah, they do a good job. Wyatt, all those guys inside. And they got a rotation with Rashawn Garrett coming back. He's a terrific football player. They got length with Preston Smith. The way they built that thing, like a 3-4, you play sub 4 down, but the way they play with the edge guys and they'll roll guys, the inside linebackers, those guys do a lot for them. Quay and Devondre Campbell, and then Jair Alexander is probably one of the better corners in this league. They know who they are. They play solid. The safeties, Rudy Ford, Savage, Douglas on the outside, Nixon when he comes in and sub. I mean, they got a good rotation. They've been together. That staff's been together for a couple of years. Joe's been calling for a couple of years there. They've drafted for that kind of scheme, and they know who they are, and it's a solid defense.
You mentioned earlier that the Packers have their way of doing things, but they seem to, have mastered how they have a Hall of Fame quarterback and then they draft one to just sit behind him and learn from him. So how valuable is that for a young quarterback to be able to develop and learn from?
Well, it helps, but he's in a stable situation. So when he takes the field, he's got some veteran linemen. They've put some resources in the skill players. You've got a really explosive running back that's really a weapon in the pass game, and Aaron Jones has been there for a while. You've got the same play caller. A lot of coaches have been there. All that stuff matters, and they're not all the same. I mean, you go back and they didn't draft Brett Favre, right? He was here, correct? Make sure my history's right. I know I'm kind of being sarcastic here, but Favre goes in there, right? And they sign Reggie White. You get that whole Ron Wolf iteration. They do flip a couple changes in there, and then they got a good run with Mike McCarthy from switching to Aaron Rodgers, and he was able to sit, and they had some good linemen, skill players all around, and that helps. It certainly helps, but I don't think every story is going to be the exact same either.
So basically, it's more than just the mentorship; it's also what you have across the line. And
It certainly helps.
Yeah.
It certainly helps. Again, I don't think, as great as some of these players are, it's still a team game. You can't throw the ball to yourself. Well, you could. You take a negative 6-yard play to start the season. So I stand corrected. See how I set that one up? But in all seriousness, it's a team game, and you need help. And sometimes things happen. Again, as great as some of these guys are, you can't block everybody by yourself. You can't, if you're a receiver and you're open, you may have no idea what's going on behind you. So it's the ultimate team game. There's a lot that goes into it.
Anything else?
Thank you.